Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes.
Hi Krishna, I think we can start now. I want to welcome His Holiness Keshava Maharaja in this wisdom talks today. My name is Pavani and I am a facilitator at the College for Vedic Studies. So I want to welcome you all for coming, and also, if you don't mind, you can also come a little bit closer somehow, because we're expecting more people to come. First I would like to ask, are there any newcomers, people who are for the first time here? Welcome. What is your name?
I'm George.
George, nice to meet you. So welcome to our program. So this is a platform we call Wisdom Talks, because we like that people can get to know the spiritual seekers and teachers in our Bhakti movement, and to get to know a little bit closer through presenting a certain topic and then having a Q&A session. So I would like to say a little bit also about Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaja. So he has been a spiritual seeker in the Bhakti Yoga process and this Krishna consciousness movement for more than 20 years. A year ago, he has accepted the renounced order of life, so he's sannyasi. He's also a very well-known teacher in the School of Bhakti in the UK, and UK Manor is his residence actually, or headquarters in a way. He gives wonderful lectures everywhere about spiritual topics and about also personal development, and he also wrote, I think, 10 books. Yeah, and we're very happy to have him. So even though Maharaj is not so, I mean, you always use in every of your sessions this Q&A sessions. It's so, I mean, it's part of your preaching. So we already had that throughout this week while we were here, but we would also like to do it again, because I think every one of us has some question about what is the purpose in their life and what to do in their spiritual life. So this will be the topic of today. So the purpose in life that Maharaj will speak about a little bit as an introduction until 12:30 plus minus, because we started a little bit late. If you're not aware, the toilets are on the right side of the entrance, from the entrance. So just let you know. And this session will last until 1 p.m. So thank you very much, and please.
Thank you, Lokapavani, and welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for coming. And yeah, today is really a unique opportunity for us. I've come into today's session with no specific, although I have a PowerPoint here and it all looks very organized, it's really not actually, because I prefer to keep it very flexible. And we're talking about something which I think is relevant for all of us. I'm looking at some of you, and some of you have probably heard some of the things that I'm going to say today, so bear with me. But it's always good to recap, because this topic we're talking about today is such a powerful topic, and it's a topic which even I myself regularly question myself about, because I think it's really the key to living the best life that we really all want to live in this world, and that is the topic of Dharma. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally going to present something for about 15 minutes, just put some ideas out there, put some things for all of you to think about, and then I'm going to open it up, and this session is going to be crafted by all of you. So if you tell me there's a specific thing you're really interested to know more about, then we can kind of take segues and go into different directions. So does that sound good? That sound okay? So yeah, be totally relaxed. We're not on any particular journey here. And yeah, we'll just try and do the best we can. Is that back in Hawaii? Thank you so much. So just so all of you know, some of you here for the first time, this is a well, I can tell you this is these are flowers, by the way. There's a garland of flowers. As you see here, we have an altar with the forms of Krishna and Krishna's different avatars. And later on, maybe we'll get into a little bit about this, about spiritual connection and connecting with divinity on a personal level. But one of the aspects of connecting with divinity on a personal level is to offer God many things every single day. And one of the things we offer is garlands of flowers. And so the speaker gets the opportunity to also get this, to get some extra blessings and grace. So that's what this is. So I'll just begin with some prayers as we just prepare our hearts and minds to try to absorb this knowledge. Actually, it's said when we come into a spiritual assembly of sincere seekers, then what happens is amongst us we actually generate an energy. And in that energy, what's basically happening is that the questions, the doubts, the dilemmas, the decisions deep within our hearts that we have to make, and the guidance which we really seek, that can actually be directly answered in an assembly like this, not because the speaker is a mind reader, although that is one of my talents. No, I'm joking. But just because of the energy we create amongst ourselves, that actually we begin to get the messages that we need to hear, that helps us to live a more progressive life. So we're just going to say some prayers to kind of open our hearts to that energy, and then I'll present some ideas, and then we'll kind of see where we go today. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Once there was a husband and a wife, and they were asking each other, what are your priorities? What are your top 3 priorities in life? So the wife said, number 1, the kids. Number 2, you, my husband. And number 3, myself. So that was very nice. And then the wife looked at the husband and said, what are your priorities? He said, number 1, myself. Number 2, the kids. Number 3, you. So naturally that was a little bit shocking to her. But then he gave the purport. He said, my priority is myself, not selfishly. Because if I understand myself, if I invest in myself, if I unlock the best of myself, then what I can do is when I come to serve my kids, when I come to serve you, I'm bringing the best of myself to you. And therefore, in order for me to do the best I can do for you and the kids. I need to bring the best version of myself to you. And therefore, my own journey and my own development is a priority in my life. So that was very, very nice. Because in today's day and age, often we talk about how spirituality is all about selflessness, and that is definitely true. But one of the foundations of selflessness is self-care, self-discovery, and self-development. Because when we engage in all of those three things, then what happens is we maximize our ability to give selfless service to the world. And today we're talking about Dharma. And Dharma is very, very important because Dharma is probably the central concept to unlocking your own potential. Here on the screen I put a jigsaw puzzle with a piece missing. This is very, very significant because every single person in this world has a unique contribution to make to this world. That's not just a nice self-development, motivational, reel for Instagram that hopefully will go viral. No, that's actually a deep philosophical point, because what Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita is that each one of us have a unique nature. Each one of us have a unique psycho-physical makeup. And if we're able to understand that deeply, and if we're able to embrace the abilities, the skills, the personality, the qualities that we've been divinely invested with, and then if we then go on to use that in service to others and service to the world, then we can actually make a profound impact and really bring beauty into people's lives and beauty into our own life. And so Dharma, although Sanskrit words are very difficult to translate, Dharma could be translated in many ways, but literally Dharma means the essence of something. So Dharma means the essence of something in the sense that that thing which cannot be separated. If you take that thing away, then it just wouldn't be that thing anymore. So for example, we say the Dharma of sugar is to be sweet. Because if it's not sweet, it ain't sugar, right? The Dharma of water is to flow, is liquid. Although water sometimes takes other forms, the real Dharma of water is to be fluid in its normal state. And therefore fluidity, as we can say, is the Dharma of water. So each one of us have a Dharma. And we have basically, broadly speaking, two types of Dharma. What I'm basically sharing with you is what Krishna basically guides Arjuna through in the Bhagavad Gita. And I'm just putting it maybe in contemporary terms, but when you read the book, you'll be able to actually see how aligned this is. For most people, if you ask them what is success for them in this world, then they will basically mention many of these things on the right. To nurture good relationships, to have good health, to raise a family, to have some kind of position and achievement in the world, security, and leaving some kind of legacy in the world. This is what, for most people, success is. And probably even for us in the room, these are things that we work hard for. And these are important. Yet, even with all of these things, there's always a sense that there's something more. There's also another journey that I'm meant to be going on. There's another purpose to my life. There's something else I should be seeking. And in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna basically comes to this conclusion where he realizes that in my life I've been endeavoring and I will endeavor for many of these things. And we're not saying they're unimportant or they're irrelevant, but he says to Krishna that I also feel like there's another aspect of my journey that I need to nourish and I need to explore and I need to fulfill. And Krishna basically then goes on to Arjuna and tells him that yes, basically each of us in this world have two sides to our life, and we have two, broadly speaking, dharmas that we're trying to follow. On one side we have a Swadharma, which is almost our material purpose, our purpose in the outer world. The Swadharma is something which is very individual and unique to each one of us. And Swadharma really encompasses our purpose in the immediate realm of living in this world. And so if you remember that previous slide, then you can see all of these things are very much related to your Swadharma. They're immediate, they're about your interaction with this world, they're very much about the material side of life, which again we're not saying is unimportant, but yes, these are, we can still say, very, in one sense, material things. But in answer to Arjuna's question, what Krishna says is that you have another side of your dharma or your purpose or your meaning, and that is what we call Sanatan Dharma. So Swadharma literally means your individual purpose, your individual meaning in this life. And Sanatan Dharma literally means your eternal or your ultimate or the universal meaning in every single person's life. And that refers to our spiritual calling, our inner world, our ultimate aspirations to look for happiness and fulfillment and connection on a deeper level. So right at the onset of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna does with Arjuna is he kind of lays this foundation and he says everyone has to pursue both of these things side by side. We have to try to be the best we can in this world and unlock our abilities and talents, and at the same time we have to nourish our inner calling, our spiritual calling. And if we can learn not just to do these two things but to integrate them, then what happens is you generate an energy in your life which is incredibly powerful. So broadly speaking, the two sides to success and dharma are on one side identifying your abilities that you've been given, identifying the facilities that you've been offered according to your fortunes in this life, and then accepting various identities and roles in this world through which you can function and make your contribution. And on the spiritual side, our meaning, our purpose is to develop our character, to elevate our consciousness, and ultimately to find spiritual connection. If someone does all of these things on the left-hand side but doesn't do these things, then they may find that they've met with success, they've achieved what they were looking for, but still a vacuum remains in the heart. And one may also find that if they try to do these things, but they don't appropriately find a way in which to function in this world and interact with the environment around them, then their ability to do this will also be hampered because they haven't paid attention to the material or the Swadharma side of life. So Krishna, it's interesting that what the Bhagavad Gita does at the beginning is when Arjuna says, like, Krishna, I'm looking for happiness. Krishna doesn't just say to Arjuna, you just have to forget about all the material things and you just have to be a spiritual person, because none of these material things are going to make you happy. That's not actually what Krishna says. Krishna actually says to Arjuna, you have to understand your material identity. You have to strive to be the best you can in the material situation you find yourself in. But then what you have to do is connect that to your deeper spiritual calling and integrate it with your higher, deeper, divine aspirations. And so Krishna says it's not about neglecting the material and just being spiritual, but it's about finding how the material and spiritual integrate together. And this is the most powerful way in which to lead your life. Yeah. So this is basically what I'm basically summarizing to you is the first, second, and part of the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the foundation of what Krishna is teaching to Arjun. So let me just pause there, and instead of just going on a monologue, let me just see whether there are any immediate responses to that, or anything you'd like to ask, or just clarify. Yes.
I've always wondered, because there are people online. Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this opening. But I've always wondered, how do you know which is your inner calling? I can be good at many things, for instance, but how do I know which path to take? If I'm good at many things, but ultimately I don't know which path to choose. And that is what has been bewildering me for a very long time.
So basically, how do you find your Dharma?
Yes. It should be the outer Dharma.
Yeah, how do you find this, how do you identify what are your abilities, what are your facilities, and therefore what roles or identity should you adopt in this world? Okay, I'm going to go on to that, and I'm definitely going to speak about that. Just before we go on to that, so I will address that, just to see whether there's an immediate just on anything else. Otherwise, shall I just go? Maybe, okay, let me go on to that since you've asked it. So the question you're asking is basically the very same question that Arjun asks. This is a verse from the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Just for those of you, I'll give you a sense of how the Sanskrit sounds. Karpanya dosho pahatasva bhava prajami tvam dharma shamuda chetaha yachreya shanishchitam bruhitan me Shishyaste hamsa dhimam tvam prapannam. So this is the beginning of Krishna's imparting wisdom to Arjun, and it all begins with Arjun's question, where basically he says, I have a Dharma shamuda. Dharma shamuda literally means a Dharma confusion. So I'm actually confused. I'm actually unclear. I'm actually at a loss as to what my Dharma is. What is it that I'm meant to pursue? This often happens to us because sometimes there are many opinions around us, there are many expectations around us, there are many pressures and people in our lives who we want to please. And therefore, in the noise of all of that, sometimes it's so hard to understand what is my Dharma, because there seems to be so many conflicting messages, and in the midst of it I'm also not even hearing my inner voice. So Arjun says to Krishna, I'm confused about my duty, I've lost all composure because of weakness. I'm asking you to tell me what is the best path for me to lead in this world. What is my Dharma? I'm your disciple. Please guide me, please instruct me. So basically the first thing that Krishna is then helping Arjun to do in the Bhagavad Gita is identify. Now we focus on the material side, which is what you asked about. How do we understand what our Swadharma or our purpose in this life is? And before we do that, it's important to know the benefits of living in your Dharma. Because when you know what are the benefits of living in your Dharma, then it will help you to identify what your Dharma is. This is a very famous verse from the Manusmriti. The Sanskrit aphorism is Dharma Rakshita Rakshita. That when you protect your Dharma protects you. So I often ask this question, if I asked you to write a paragraph with your non-writing hand, what kind of things would you experience? Can you just shout out to me? Like, if you're right-handed and I asked you to write with your left-handed, what would you? It would be frustrating. It would be uncomfortable. It would be difficult. You wouldn't produce a very clear result. It would be slow. It would be dissatisfying to you. You wouldn't feel content. And eventually, because of all of those things, you'd want to give it up. So this is basically what happens when people live outside of their Dharma. If you live in your Dharma, naturally you'll feel content and satisfied. These are clues which help you to understand, what is my Dharma? What are those activities that help me feel content and satisfied? What are those activities that through which I seem to make my best contribution and impact in the world? What are those activities in which when I begin to do them, I feel a natural confidence, I feel a natural positivity, I feel a natural energy? What are those activities which naturally allow me to find balance and good health on a physical, emotional level? And what are those activities through which I feel empowered? I feel like I'm channeling a higher energy. I feel like I'm, achieving my potential and unlocking what there is within me. So Krishna basically says to Arjuna that your Dharma is basically those activities and that life role that helps you to achieve all of these benefits. Because when you follow your Dharma will protect you, and your Dharma will deliver you all of these things. And so broadly speaking, Krishna says that there are different types of Dharma in the world, different positions that one can take. I'm not going to go into that now, but let me just share with you one other thing. That if you want to now find that Dharma, if you want to find that Dharma, then the first thing is analyze your personality. So just get to know yourself better. Do a personality test, a DISC test. Do a brainstorm. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What activities do I naturally feel energy in when I do? What are those things that when I embark upon them, I seem to lose a sense of time? Just do some analysis of your own personality and you will begin to get a better picture of what your personality type is. Ask others. Find people who know you, who observe you, who have seen some part of your life journey, and get their feedback. They will have many observations and insights which maybe you haven't seen, by which you can understand from their observation, helps you to identify what your Dharma may be. And ultimately attempt different things, so that if you think something is your Dharma, then just try things out. Do courses, shadow someone who's doing that similar thing that you think you should be doing. Do it as a temporary occupation. A lot of Dharma is not found intellectually, it's not found even in discussion, but it's found in just trying things out and finding what fits. And so this is like a broad spectrum. Some people think Dharma is just that thing which just magically is revealed to you in a moment of epiphany in the middle of the night. Almost like the Isaac Newton moment of the apple dropping. But even when Isaac Newton saw the apple drop, it's not that in that moment he figured it all out, but that moment just triggered a series of thoughts and contemplations which then led to his discovery of gravity. So it takes time, and essentially this is perhaps the most basic formula of what is your Dharma. Your passion plus your expertise plus your contribution to the world equals your Dharma. One really, really important point to recognize is that Dharma is never selfish. So it's not just that your passion plus your expertise equals your Dharma. Your Dharma is something which is always meant to be used in contribution and service to others. So when your passion plus your expertise is then used to uplift others, to contribute to the world, then it becomes your Dharma. So this is kind of like the broad definition of how to kind of find your Dharma. And yeah, even with this definition that I'm giving you, it's not like it's just going to come like that, but it gives you the guidelines and it gives you a kind of sense of what journey you can go on.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay, hope that helps. Yes, any other comments, thoughts? Yes. And feel free to be creative. Of course, I'm going on a journey here speaking about Dharma, but if it opens any other thoughts about spirituality, about life in your mind, then feel free to ask about that. Yes?
Hare Krishna, Svayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaja. All my respect to you, because you just fulfill, I think, the desire of many people when they are asking you a question, like you did now. You have that ability to put very deep, universal laws into definition like you present right now that helps simple people like myself to really be able to analyze in a very profound way. And it's that what I'm so appreciating on your personality, that you give everybody the ability. I'm not an intellectual person, I always have intellectual friends, but I'm more the artistic, hard kind of person. And everybody is able to grasp what you are saying. And I mean, this is such a gift to the world. And I must say,
Hopefully.
it's something that I'm a very spontaneous person, and sometimes even if I'm, I don't know, meeting people somewhere in a bus or wherever, sometimes if I feel some nice thing, instead of just keeping it for myself, I'm saying it to the others. So that's why I wanted to just express my very deep
Thank you for your kind words.
that you are existing, and I think you are a real gift to this world.
Thank you so much. I was always inspired by Einstein. He said, if you can't explain it simply enough to a 7-year-old, you don't know it well enough. Now, I'm not saying that I know it well enough and that you guys are like 7-year-olds, but I'm not saying that at all. But I was always inspired by that ultimately the truth must be simple. Ultimately, the truth must be accessible. And ultimately, the truth must be applicable. If it's not understandable, accessible, and applicable, to me it sounds like it ain't the truth. Because why would the truth just be the monopoly of a few intellectuals or a few highly gifted people? Therefore, actually, the most simple, the most profound spiritual truths are actually the most simple. I often talk about how spiritual learning is not linear. It's not about asking and gaining more and more information, but rather it's like a spiral. And therefore, spiritual learning is such that when you go round and round discussing subject matters from different points of view, then eventually what happens is you hone into an essence which is actually very, very simple and, as I said, understandable and applicable. So I'm trying to do that, but I'll just add to your point that sometimes what I do is I present it like this, like, yeah, Dharma, passion plus expertise plus service, done. And I may make it sound very simple, and it is simple, but life is complicated, and the world is complicated, and maybe some of us are a little complicated up there as well. And therefore, it's good, like now we have a framework. What I try to do is I try to provide a framework here, and then I throw it all out to you to not challenge me, but to stimulate and say like, okay, sounds good, I'm on board, clear. But in life, how do I live this? What are the obstacles? What are the complexities that arise? So I think it's both things. But yeah, thank you so much for your kind words. And we all need a bit of encouragement, and much appreciated. Yes.
Well, the Priya Mataji is known for glorifying devotees all the time, so that's
Yes.
a very nice quality, I have to say.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I have another question to Dharma. Is it in today's time really possible to find and develop your Dharma without a guru? Because I think in further times in the Varnashrama system, it was the duty of the Brahmani to observe the children in school and find out what are their talents. So maybe one child is brilliant in climbing trees, another child is a brilliant swimmer, the next child just likes to sit and think, so he would be a perfect philosopher. But in today's times in school, the talents are suppressed. So by the school system, so when the child is perfect in climbing trees, it is said, oh, you have to sit down and learn mathematics. And yes, so
can we really find our Dharma if we don't have that kind of enlightened advice from a guru or a spiritual figure? That's your question.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it is. When you like this, for me, it is like playing God myself. So you tell us you have to find your Dharma yourself, but I'm not sure if it is possible. In some cases, yes, but I think in most cases not.
Of course, in the middle step I've put ask. So there is a natural sense in which we are approaching others who know us well, who know us better, who have wisdom, who have an enlightened perspective. So definitely there's no sense of trying to remove that from the equation. That's very, very much needed. But the reality, as you said, is that we don't grow up with that kind of guidance. We don't grow up with that kind of enlightened wisdom that's being given to us by a guru. That's just the reality of the world we're living in. Therefore, we have to make the best use of a bad bargain. And therefore, we have to try to analyze for ourselves and then find people, develop those relationships, and find spiritual teachers, mentors, coaches. Practically in any field in the world, not just spiritual things, everyone learns from a teacher. So definitely the second step of asking a guru, asking a teacher, asking someone who can give you a higher perspective is indispensable. So yeah, it's definitely needed. Is that my battery gone? Is that on? So yes, I agree with you, we should. And I also agree with your point that the modern educational system, you know, that there's this modern idea that you can be anything you want to be. That's the kind of affirmation that people are encouraged, like you can be anything you want to be, which actually can actually be very harmful to people. It's not that you can be anything you want to be, but you can be everything that you're meant to be. Maybe we should adjust the affirmation towards that in our educational system, so that, because when you tell people you can be anything you want to be, we're losing sight of the fact that there's abilities which we have and there's abilities which we just don't have. But the fact that we don't have something is not a limitation, it's not an obstacle. We just have to turn our attention to the things that we do have and focus on those things. So it's not that you can be anything you want to be, you can be everything that you're meant to be. And that means finding the unique contribution that we're meant to make. And yeah, you mentioned that. Einstein said, everyone is a genius. But if you convince a fish that it has to climb a tree, it will live its whole life thinking it's a failure. And because of this notion in the modern world that you can be anything you want to be, people feel that when they can't become what they really want to be, but which meant maybe they're not wired for, then they're a failure. So that's what's happening in the world we're living in today. So yes, just some responses to you.
Yes, I
Yes.
think that is a big dilemma in our school system. There are some children, they have brilliant talents, but they are told or they are given the feeling they are stupid because they are just not brilliant in mathematics and grammar. But maybe they are just good listeners, or so they are good servants, so they would be good vendors in a shop, but the children are told, oh no, you mustn't be a vendor, only stupid people do that,
Yeah.
you have to go to university and become a professor or something.
And the reason this happens is because people only see one side of Dharma. They see the Swadharma as the all in all. So if your entire picture of life is just the material side, then naturally what people are going to try to do is be as materially successful as they can. But when you know that your material Dharma is a means towards your ultimate, deeper spiritual Dharma, which is the ultimate happiness and the ultimate success, then you're not so concerned about, being in this position in society, in this world, because you know what, there's a bigger journey to go on, there's a bigger thing I'm aiming for, so I don't need to invest all of my sense of self-worth in what I achieve in this world. But rather, what I achieve in this world is a means towards what I'm going to achieve in my ultimate journey, which is inner fulfillment, inner success, inner connection, and spiritual enlightenment. But because people don't have that perspective, if all you have is the material world, then naturally, they think material success is everything. And material success is defined by, climbing to the top.
I saw your hands, but I was
Hi Krishna, I just wanted to ask a question around when you protect your Dharma protects you, how you can actually get into this mentality, because I know we often want to go on a retreat or go on yatra somewhere, and I think often people in the UK, I don't know, like they call in sick or they take like extra holiday, and I don't know how we can get into this mentality of, okay, I'm doing my Dharma, and this is no different from me going onto the yatra or going to the Dharma.
So you're saying that sometimes people, in order to have spiritual opportunities, they end up doing something adharmic, like lying, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. In order to, but if our principle is if you maintain the right way of living and you do things in the right way, then naturally the opportunities will come about and you'll be protected. So how do we balance that? Of course, when you're living in the material world, there's always a sense of, you have to kind of adjust, you have to play the game a little bit, so yeah, maybe something here and there to open up an opportunity is not like the end of the world. It's not that you've sold yourself out on your principles, Sometimes you have to just, Srila Prabhupada, he said, even when a businessman is doing business or businesswoman, then when they're selling something, they say to the customer, for you, I'm making no profit. Everyone knows it's a lie. They know it's a lie. The business person knows it's a lie, but they just understand this is life, you have to. So sometimes we may, living in this world, do a bit of that, maneuver here and there. But overall, we should try to live by our principles. And when we live by our principles, then ultimately, because we're living in harmony with universal laws, then why will the ultimate universal arrangement of providence not come to assist us? We have to have that confidence. And so, yeah, it's about not selling out on your principles in in the world today. Recently we did a seminar called the Dharma of Capitalism, and to show how even in the corporate world, when companies and when seriously influential people make decisions, not just based on profit and power, but when they make decisions based on principles, then what happens is, even if in the immediate term there seems to be some kind of loss, in the long term there's always growth, there's always development, and there's always newer doors of opportunity which open up. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about this, the mode of passion, the mode of ignorance, and the mode of goodness. So sattva and dharma go hand in hand. So when we live in dharma, when we follow sattva or goodness, then we always have a long-term benefit. And basically, we always have to have that long-term vision. And when you have a long-term vision, then you will embrace dharma. Like that. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. I have a question, Maharaj. You mentioned that the dharma of sugar is to be sweet. And so after that lady was talking about suppressing the tendencies of the kids at school, the question came to my mind, is there any shastric evidence that the dharma would be influenced by external circumstances? Is there any shastric evidence for that?
So is there any shastric evidence for the fact that an external factor can suppress?
Can influence at all the dharma?
No, it doesn't affect your dharma, but what it affects is your ability to see your dharma.
Oh yeah, so it brings confusion, as Arjuna was.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So it's like if 30 people tell me, you know, you're not meant to be a doctor, you're meant to be a lawyer, right? It's not that their 30 opinions are going to change my dharma, but what their 30 opinions are probably going to do is confuse me more about actually realizing what I'm meant to do. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So our educational system, what it basically does is it creates a lot of confusion because it's based on competition, comparison. See, basically it's like this. Imagine two people go into an exam hall and one person sitting next to the other person who just ends up being like the star student. They think like, this must be divine providence. I ain't revised for this exam and I'm sitting next to the star student. So clearly God wants me to copy this person. And imagine you then go and copy that person's answer paper perfectly. And you walk out of the exam hall and you think, I copied it perfectly. I must have. And then you come out of the exam hall and you realize, but everyone had a different question paper. So that's basically what's happening in the world. That everyone is copying everyone else's exam paper, but they don't realize they have a different question. And what the world tells us to do is copy the exam paper, because this is success. The guy next to you is success. So do this. So, of course it's changing also. Hopefully educational systems will change, we have a hope. Apparently they say with AI, I don't know how you feel about AI, but apparently they're saying with AI, what it could bring about in the educational system is personalized education. So many progressive schools are trying to use AI to look at how we can create tailor-made educational programs for students which suit their nature rather than impressing a whole system on them. Now, how far artificial intelligence can go, who knows? But at least even educational systems are realizing we need to go in that direction of personalized education instead of just... Was that out?
Actually, I couldn't really
No, your Dharma cannot be changed.
Yeah,
By-
that was mainly my question.
By external forces it
Because we
cannot
can
be.
be delayed, but the Dharma would not be changed. We will be delayed
Yeah,
at worst,
yeah,
unfortunately. Thank you.
thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you. Maharaj, I have this question maybe based on my little experiences. So we have this reward system everywhere, you know, either we go in the material life or spiritual life. So I feel this as an impediment. Like
You have a what?
the reward system. Let's say whatever
Reward
you do,
system.
even
Reward
in the
system.
schools, if I see my small kid going to school, you do this and you get that. Okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And the whole Bhagavad Gita principles, the Lord is, you know, teaching that come out of that reward system, you know, do this, you know, karma, you know, and those stuff. So how do we actually, because even in the spiritual life, we see, you know, I was, you know, having an experience when my wife delivered a baby. After that, she was comparing with the other devotees in the temple, you know, she was not able to do service and that, and she was not even able to appreciate what she is doing as a dharma, because that doesn't get an appreciation, that doesn't get a reward. So in this system of reward, where everywhere in the spiritual circle or when we go outside, we, you know, for every act,
There's a reward. And sometimes that reward system is taking away from our Dharma. So
Yeah.
basically, yeah, that's a very good point. So basically, that's why I showed you this slide. We have the wrong definition of success. What do you consider a reward? If we consider position a reward, if we consider power a reward, if we consider profit a reward, if we consider popularity a reward, if we consider number of people who follow us on social media as a reward, then know for sure those rewards are going to take you away from your Dharma. But if you look at these things as reward, what makes me balanced, what makes me confident, positive, what allows me to make my most powerful contribution to the world, if you consider these things to be reward, if you orientate your consciousness in that way, then naturally your decisions will be based upon what is going to awaken this. And if your decisions are based upon what awakens this, then your decisions are going to be in line with your Dharma, taking you towards your Dharma. So basically, again, in Sanskrit, they have two words, Shreyas and Preyas. So Shreyas means that which gives you an immediate reward, and Preyas means that which gives you ultimate development. And what we're basically doing in the world today is we're selling out ultimate development for immediate reward. And therefore we tell people, put it on your fridge. Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now. What feels good now is money. What feels good now is appreciation. What feels good now is the position that you can tell other people you have. But what you want most is these things.
Maharaj, I just have one more extending question. So in the art of parenting, generally it happens with me, you know, when I deal with my kid, by default this, you know, this thought of reward comes. You know, I will tell him that if you do this, if you complete this, you will get that. But is it actually a wrong thing, because if you see externally outside all these atomic habits and big books and which comes, they actually based on this platform of reward system. So actually, you know, to give a good art of parenting to the kids or to the other generation, what are your thoughts?
Oh, telling people the benefits and the rewards of something is not a problem. But it's just, what do you tell them the benefits and rewards are? If you tell your children these are the benefits and rewards that you have to look forward to, if you instill within them that this is important, then that's a wonderful thing, because then they'll orientate them towards that, right? You see, like if you don't want a child to eat too many sweets, you could tell them, if you don't eat this many sweets, then I'll give you like double the pocket money. Or you could tell them, if you don't eat these sweets, you know what, your health is going to be better, you're going to be better, but you're going to be able to achieve more. Basically, we have to inspire them to do the right thing in the context of the reward that it's going to give them. You understand?
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Just to say also, I am no authority on parenting. Just to add that disclaimer, but I think it will work.
I just had a very quick, very simple question. So when we have something in the area of passion, so we're passionate about something, and something in the area of expertise, but not something necessarily in both. I mean, it's a very simple question. Where should we dig more into, or like how do we kind of start to combine them or find the middle ground?
So if you imagine two circles, one is the things you're good at, and the other circle is the things you really like to do. And generally, so we say the intersection is your Dharma, but then what do you do about all these other things that are not in the intersection, right?
Yeah,
That's your basic question.
I think it's very clear what's in the passion section and what's in the expertise section, but it's very unclear what's in the middle section. Like that.
Okay. No, but why is that more unclear? Like the things, if you can identify what you're good at, and if you can identify what you like, then why wouldn't you be able to identify what you're good at and you like? If you can individually identify them, then you should be able to identify things that tick both boxes, right?
Well, there seems not
Or
to
you
be
feel-
something which ticks both boxes as of now.
Oh, okay. But then that you have to go on the journey, right? Ask, analyze, and so on and so forth. But one thing I would say is also sometimes you may have an expertise, but we may see that expertise in a very narrow way. And therefore you may feel, no, this expertise, I don't really feel a passion for it. I'm good at it, but I don't really feel a passion for it. But sometimes within expertise, what you can do is broaden your vision of how that expertise can be used. And when you broaden your vision of how that expertise can be used, then you find within that broader definition, there is something that you can do with that expertise that fulfills your passion. Does it make sense? So you can do that. So sometimes it requires one to also broaden their horizon. Or sometimes there might be something that you're really inspired to do, that you're really attracted to doing, like a passion you have. But again, you're seeing it in a very narrow way. Like say, for example, someone says like, I really like that motivational speaker. I really would like to be a motivational speaker, but I have no oratory skills. Someone may feel like that. I have a passion, but I don't have an expertise for it. But what we encourage them to do is look behind it and try to go to a deeper understanding of why that motivation or the idea of being a motivational speaker inspires you. Maybe it's not so much about being a motivational speaker, but maybe it's more about just being able to inspire people. Now when you bring it down to that, my passion is that I want to inspire and empower people, then you're maybe much more likely to find an expertise that matches with that passion. You see what I'm saying? Because you've broadened your understanding of what your passion is. Does that make sense? So like that, you can think broadly. Are we okay here? Is this okay for everyone? I'm thinking like, is it good to like take a break in between?
Yes, we can.
You can stand up, breathe, and then we can maybe come round back for another like half an hour.
Yep.
And if in the middle anyone, like, it also gives an opportunity for anyone to run out without being embarrassed. No, but if you need to also do some other things, then. So I see hands, so how shall we do it? Shall we take a couple more questions and then take a break? Because the time now is 11:35.
Yeah, so we can do that. A couple questions and break.
Couple questions, then break, and then whoever's inspired, by all means join us again for part 2. So yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you so much also for your contributions. I was thinking about this point that Saramondaji mentioned about the school system that is not motivating the kids to do their dharma. So I was studying to become a teacher 1 year, and it was actually I didn't felt like we don't intend that we will guide the kids to their dharma, because we learned that we should take care of each and everyone and just try to engage every kid in that way that it suits to them. But it was very difficult for me because I couldn't I was not able to do this, to be so flexible that you can really understand every kid and you will prepare things for every kid. And also in Kali Yuga mostly of us are in passion or in ignorance, so we see the things that aren't true as truth and the truth as fault, and we act impulsively, so we just do the things that feels good now and not what we really want. And especially as when you're a kid, then maybe you just don't want to study something, and then it's like a loss forever because in this moment you just didn't want to. So I was thinking, is it really possible to get to this point that we can educate people to become the best version of themselves when we're still in this materialistic world? Because as I think it's better if like a guru have a couple of disciples, right? Very few, then he could be really specific and individual. And when it's not like this, we cannot say that the school system is completely wrong.
Yeah, we're working in a limited world, and of course we're not here just passing judgment and saying. But yeah, ultimately, like even in the school system, they realize when you have smaller classrooms, it's much better. Smaller classes, because there's more personal contact, there's more personal attention, there's more personalized approach. And then there's limitations in terms of how we do that in the world. So of course, we can only work within the limitations we have, but the more we talk about this and the more we raise this in the consciousness, at least as an aspirational value, is established within teachers and within students as well, that I'm not just part of a system that's meant to just put me through a conveyor belt so that I become a product, but rather I am a unique product and I have to find my unique contribution. So the more we talk about this, even if we're not able to change the educational system, at least individuals in themselves who are within that system will be very clear that yes, I'm in this educational system, but I realize I have my own calling. You understand? So it's important to proliferate this knowledge, because it's about changing values, right? So yeah, we're in a world where we don't have control over the educational system, and yeah, we understand what the educational system is doing is trying to give everyone a baseline. So you learn maths, English, science, you learn a bit of everything, so you have a baseline foundation. So we understand that there are certain reasons why it functions like that. But yeah, ultimately everyone must understand this principle deeply, even if our system isn't tailored in that way, that everyone is an individual and everyone has an individual contribution to make.
is there truly unselfish contribution, or do we subconsciously do it because we get satisfaction? So it's actually a selfish behavior.
Yes. Really good question. Is there any true selflessness in this world? Because it even seems often when we do a so-called selfless act, there's still some amount of, even if it's not a material reward, some amount of I feel good about myself, I have, you know. So yes, we can say there's a continuum from selfishness to selflessness. So selfishness is selfishness in one's actions and one's motivations. Right? Does that make sense? Yeah. And then as you move along this continuum, then what happens is there's selflessness, there's selfishness in one's intention, but there's selflessness in one's acts. But when you move along that continuum even more, and you deeply spiritually connect yourself, and you realize yourself to be an instrument of divinity, then you don't just have selfless acts, but you also have selfless motivation as well. Because your only objective is to express love. So there's basically a continuum there, right? Selfish acts and selfish intentions. Selfish intentions, but at least selfless acts to try to culture more of a selflessness in motivation. And eventually when there's divine connection, because one is invested with love from their divine connection. You see, it's like if you think of divine connection as a vertical relationship and service as a horizontal relationship here, then what happens is when you're drawing love from connection with divinity, then all you're needing to do here is redistribute that love. But when you're not drawing that love from divine connection, then in your relationships in this world, there will always be some level of exchange, because one has not become fulfilled, one has not become complete. So once we become complete through deep spirituality and deep spiritual connection, then one can give without any sense of, because their giving is a sharing of love. And I think we have glimpses of that. Like, it's not that that is such a utopian concept that we have glimpses of that when we truly do something like without any expectation. You may say, yeah, but you still feel good about it. But sometimes in that moment, you're not doing it with a conscious thought that now let me do this because I'm going to feel good about it. The feeling good about it is just something that just comes. But the first thought is let me do it. And then the second thought is, oh, I actually feel quite good by doing that. But the first thought is, let me serve. Do you see? So there's a difference. There's a difference between if I say like, remind me your name? Your name? George, yeah. There's a difference if I'm like, oh, George is there, let me, if I do something for him, if I do this for him, then I'm going to feel really good, and then I do it for you. And there's a difference between when I come in front of you and I'm just like, let me do it. And then later on I realize, oh wow, that was really nice. But so service, in deep spirituality, service becomes the first consideration. And the feeling and the happiness which naturally comes from that is just a concomitant consequence that you gladly accept. But it's not the driving force. But in the beginning, while we're not on that level of spirituality, it may be the impetus.
Or what I was trying, or my doubt was, what if subconsciously, because when I grew up,
yeah. That can also be there.
I do it, yeah, because my
because you've done it so many times before and you've got that feeling, you're just drawn towards doing it again.
It's a habit.
Yeah, that could also be true. But in deep spirituality, we understand that the service is the reward. The opportunity to serve is the reward. It's hard to conceive of, no?
So thank you very much.
Yeah,
We're
so.
going to have a break now, and then in the second part we will start with Sarah's question. We also and we have one online question as well. So
Okay, sure. Yeah, so we can stretch your legs and I don't know if there's...
10 minutes break.
Yeah, stretch your
Okay.
legs, yeah.
Thank you.
If you can join us, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
Continue. Is it okay? Would you
Yes,
like to say
yes.
something again?
No, we can continue on with the questions. And
Okay.
if you feel like also we have half an hour, so if you feel like you want to go a bit broader beyond Dharma and just talk about any other spiritual things in general, we can also open it up like that as well.
We can go a bit beyond as well if needed. Like
Yeah.
Yeah. We have time until 1 o'clock.
Oh, okay.
I
I was like,
don't know if you knew
just
that.
because we need to leave at 2 for
Oh,
Lang and
it's no
Tal, so
problem.
maybe
Yeah.
they're like 12:45 maybe.
Okay. We don't wanna
I'd like to be
squeeze
completely
you.
selfless, but not on that level yet.
Yeah,
Yes,
sure.
please,
It's not
yes.
Yes, I have so many questions, but I have to reduce to only 2. One is one comment to his questions. I used to say that altruism is selfish, because when you, that is what I try to tell people. What makes you really happy is when you do something for others, and when you take yourself back and say, oh, I give it to you, and yes, afterwards you feel better. And but that was just a comment. My question is, isn't the Dharma of us all the same? So the Dharma is to make this world a better place and to serve to all beings, also to all animals and to all trees and plants. But the talents we get to fulfill our Dharma are different. So it's like we are the gardeners in a huge garden. The garden is the whole world, and some of us like to take care for the rose garden, and others they prefer to plant vegetables, and the thirds they like to construct the path in the garden. And we have to find out. I mean, as I said before, not we ourselves, but together with a teacher, with a good teacher. That is the job of a teacher, to support us to find out what our talent is. And now the one question which is I'm asking myself every day since years. It's about Bill Gates. He was born in a very rich family, and so I think he has a good karma, and he has many talents, because now he is very famous,
Influential.
and he is influenced, and he is doing many things. I think which he thinks they are good, but I think he has so much money, so he could build schools in India and support whole India with clean drinking water. But what is he doing? He supports India with this bullshit vaccinations. And why isn't Krishna whispering into his ears what would be a real good thing? Because I ask myself, does he really is he really selfish, or does he think that what he is doing is good? Because one day he will stand Krishna, and Krishna tells him, look, Bill, I gave you so many talents. What did you do with your talents?
There's a joke actually that Bill Gates went to the pearly gates, you know, the gates of heaven. So then God said, you want to go to hell or you want to go to heaven? So he goes, show me hell. So then he got a vision of hell, like people were partying, it was a nightclub, they were dancing, you know. So wow. Okay, and then he said, give me a vision of heaven. So then God gave him a vision of hell. It's very peaceful, and like angels and harpsichords. And so he came back, he thought, oh, I think I want to go to hell. So then he went down to hell, and then in a moment, then all these people came and started attacking him. So he came to God, he said, hey, what happened? You know, you gave me a vision of hell, and it was very different. God said, that was just the screensaver. On the light-hearted side. Bill Gates, what to say? Well, in the Bhagavatam, it's very interesting. There's a very famous verse. Janmeshwarya Shruta Shri Bhir Eidhamana Badapuman Nirvar Hatya Bidatum Ve Dvamakinchana Gocharam. This is actually a verse recited by Kunti, Queen Kunti, very amazing queen. She says basically, if you have these 4 things in your life, you can understand that you are endowed with good karma. How do you know someone's got good karma? First thing is janma. They have an upbringing in which they're provided with everything. They have a very good family upbringing. That's a sign of good karma. Often many people don't get that opportunity in their life, and it holds them back. They feel it holds them back. So first thing is good family upbringing. Aishwarya means wealth. If wealth comes to you, like for some people, they don't even have to work hard, like money just comes, yeah? Somehow, good karma, people just attract money. Shruta, which means good cognitive ability, a clear intelligence, ability to discriminate and process information. That's a sign of good karma. And Shri, beauty. One has physical beauty, and this is also considered a sign of good karma. So, but what is explained by the Bhagavatam is that good karma in and of itself neither makes you happy, nor is any indication of your spirituality. However, good karma can be used if that good karma is utilized in service. Remember, passion plus expertise plus service. Or you could say whatever facilities you've been given, if you use that in service, then it becomes Dharma. So, good karma neither makes you happy, neither is an indication of your spirituality. Just because someone can sit on a seat and speak many things eloquently, that's no sign of their spirituality, because that just could be a material ability. But when we use it in service, then it's important. Now, for something to be service, it has to encompass 2 things. Intention and knowledge. Something is service when one has a good intention and one has the appropriate knowledge. Right? So many people may have a good intention, but they don't have the proper knowledge. And therefore, in their attempts to serve the world, they may actually be creating more harm. Therefore, we often tell people, when the compass of knowledge combines with the passion to serve, then it becomes compassion. So many people have a passion to serve, but they're not guided by a compass of knowledge. And therefore, we can't say it's true service, because true service must be accompanied by wisdom. So I don't want to make a comment on Bill Gates or his policies or his ideas or whatever. I'm not privy to all of that. But we can say in general that if one has good karma and one has an intention to serve and one is then having the appropriate wisdom to orientate their service, then one can do amazing things in this world. The opportunity is there. So, there's my politically correct response to your question. Since we're online. And we have Bill Gates to thank for being online, I'm sure, part of that. So we don't want to disparage him too much.
Thank you.
Yes, anyone else?
We have one online question. Just
Oh, sorry, yeah.
so it's from Sveta. How we can identify the professional work or housewife work we are doing is correct as per our Dharma? Like what we are doing, how can we determine, identify whether that is our Dharma?
Of course, I mentioned those things again, that when you're living in your Dharma, you'll experience all these different things. Now, when I'm talking today about Dharma, actually it's important, it's good that this point was brought up. Today, when I'm talking about Dharma, what I'm basically been focusing on today is career Dharma, what you do as an occupation. But actually, Dharma is not just your career. Dharma can refer to, there are many aspects of Dharma. So let me just show you here. Varna Dharma means your career. So that's what we've been speaking about today, that you have a job, you have an occupation, try to find your abilities and do that. But another type of Dharma is your ashram Dharma. So every one of us are in a certain stage of life, and according to the stage of life we're in, within this society, we have obligations, we have duties, we have responsibilities that we need to fulfill. That is also part of your Dharma. That's also part of your meaning and purpose in this life. There is also something called Apadharma. Apadharma means sometimes an emergency arises, and therefore we have certain things that we have to do as Dharma in an emergency situation, right? Like if there's a fire in the building and someone says, oh, you quick, Roman, get the fire extinguisher. And you say, well, I'm sorry, it's not my Dharma to be a fireman. Well, it's like, okay, I know you're not a fireman, I know that's not what you do for a living, but we got a fire on our hands here, like pick up the, you know what I mean? So there is also an emergency Dharma that sometimes we also have. Then there is Samanya Dharma. Samanya Dharma means a universal morality and ethics by which we have to all live. So that is also part of our Dharma. Like in a civilized society, you need to be tolerant. In a civilized society, you need to be truthful. These are also part of your Dharma. It's also part of Dharma. And then Guna Dharma, which means, basically different qualities you have that are employed. Anyway, I won't go too much, that's a complex one. I'll go into that later. But essentially, so we have all of these dharmas. So like now being a housewife or taking care of your children, you may not see that as your varna dharma, it's not your career, but it's part of your ashram dharma. It may be part of your life stage to be doing that dharma. So eventually we begin to see that, there are different types of dharma, and what we try to do is integrate them and conduct them in such a way that they support and energize the other dharmas. But generally when you're in your dharma, like I showed you that other slide, you'll know because you'll feel these effects. And it's not that all dharma will naturally give you energy, that all dharma is joyfully done. In dharma there is also sacrifice. In dharma there is also there are times when you're not always feeling like that's what you want to do. But long term, by doing those things, I'm sure a mother or a father doesn't always feel completely energized in their role as a parent. But overall, you know that when you follow that Dharma, later on, the feeling and the development that that creates within you is the fruit of it. So, I hope that helps.
Because I think that if I made a mistake, I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna. Now we've been talking mostly about the outer aspect of success or dharma, and I'm just very interested in the other
The inner.
as well. So if you could just elaborate a little more on how they connect, or in our everyday life, how can we make sure that they inform one another or support one another.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay, so let me now connect your Dharma. Yeah, so all of these Dharmas, ultimately, they are all meant to feed, and they are all meant to energize, and all meant to create opportunities for our ultimate aspiration, which is to find spiritual connection. There's a very famous verse in the Bhagavad Purana, Dharma svanustita pumsham vishvakshena kathashuya notpadayad yadi ratim shramma eva hi kevalam. Shramma eva hi kevalam is a very emphatic Sanskrit statement. Eva means certainly, kevala means only, and Shramma eva hi means certainly. And Shramma means useless. So what this verse of the Bhagavatam says is that if you do all of your dharmas in this world, but it doesn't lead you to find spiritual connection, it doesn't assist you in feeling closer and connected to divinity, then all of that following of dharma is ultimately a useless waste of time. Because dharma, only when it's orientated in such a way that it leads to a feeling of closeness and connection with the divine, then it actually fulfills its purpose. Otherwise, if you do your swadharma perfectly, but you don't incorporate it into your divine journey, then in English they say the operation was successful, but the patient died. You've basically done your operation in this world of fulfilling all your, but you died, spiritually you died, because you didn't realize that that's the ultimate aspiration. So basically it means that all of these dharmas that I'm talking about, each one of them should have a spiritual contribution. Through your career, so let's take career because we've been talking about that today. How do you spiritualize your career? How do you do your career in this world in such a way that it contributes to your Sanatana Dharma? Well, basically it means you connect the different aspects of that career. From your career you get some kind of monetary gain. You can use that finance in the service of others, in the service of divinity. From your career you learn certain skills. So you can use those skills that you've learned in your career in service to the divine, in service to others, in service of the mission of sharing spiritual knowledge. From your career you get a certain position and influence. From that position and influence of your career, can you use that to bring about spiritual change in the world? From your career you get access to a network of people. Now in your network of people and your one-to-one interactions, can you inspire them in spirituality? Then you use your career position not just for material maintenance but for divine service. And so when we become smart about how to use our particular life situations in service to the divine, then your Swadharma and your Sanatana Dharma connect. For example, if someone has an ashram dharma and they're a mother, you can be a mother or you can be a spiritual mother. Being a mother means you'll care for your child, you'll nurture them, you'll instill good qualities in them, and then you'll give them all opportunities to be successful in this world. Being a spiritual mother means you do all of those, and you also realize that this is not my son or daughter. This is a spirit soul that has been sent to me, that I have to care for, and I have to inspire and empower on their spiritual journey back to their ultimate destination. And when that becomes the underlying theme behind your interaction with your child, then you become a spiritual mother. Then you do your Dharma, but your Dharma connects to your Sanatan Dharma. So that's basically how you learn to live a life of integration. And that's what we're trying to do. What we often do too much in our lives is we compartmentalize. Oh, this is the part of my life which is just about earning money, and this is the part of my life where I do my spiritual stuff. These are the days of weeks where I have to just engage in all my material affairs, and this is the day in the week when I do something spiritual. But no, can we start living a life of integration? Can we start living a life where we're seeing divinity, interacting with divinity and serving divinity on a moment-to-moment basis? That's possible if we learn how to integrate Swadharma and Sanatan Dharma. Thank you. Sanatan Dharma.
And how to give up our Swadharma, like in this case, it's elevated, so high elevated level. So
what does that actually mean in practical terms?
How we can understand this better, like it's a little bit confusion for me.
Yeah. So basically we talked about how there's these two sides, Swadharma and Sanatan Dharma. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna encourages us to do both. He's encouraging Arjuna to do both. And then right at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarva dharman parityaja, give it up now, and just engage in your eternal spiritual pursuit. So what does this mean for us practically? There's two key messages from this that we should take. The first key message is that when we're talking about Swadharma, we're talking about a role. This is a role. Role as in R-O-L-E. And this is your identity. So when Krishna says Sarva Dharman Parityaja, what he's basically saying is never think you are your role. Never identify with your role. Give up the attachment to that designation. Doesn't necessarily mean give it up, but give up the attachment. I am not the president of the temple. I'm a servant of God, playing the role at this moment of being the president of the temple. There's a big difference between that. And what happens in the world often is that we identify ourselves with our role, and then we try to use that role in service, but it's the other way around. Understand? So basically, when Krishna is saying Sarva Dharman Parityaja, in our position at the moment, what Krishna is basically saying is, don't identify with the temporary roles, designations, positions that you've adopted, but realize they are just a vehicle to serve. And then we can say the other message of Sarva Dharman Parityaja is that ultimately, when one reaches a level of spiritual maturity And one reaches a certain level of absorption in the spiritual reality, then they no longer actually even need to function on this side, because they're accomplished enough to fully immerse themselves in the spiritual essence of life. But for most of us, we're not there. Krishna told Arjuna, you're not there, because if you try to go from the battlefield and you go to the forest thinking that now you're just going to become a yogi and you're going to meditate all day, you'll sit down to meditate and in your mind you'll be thinking about what's happening on the battlefield. So if we try to eject ourselves from the world prematurely, if we give up our duties prematurely, then basically we're going to end up with a detrimental effect on our journey. This is like scaffolding. And this is like the building that you're now building. So you need scaffolding to build the building. Then you've got to wait for the cement to dry. But once the building is built, if you take the scaffolding away before the cement is dry, then what will happen is as soon as you take that away, the whole thing will also collapse. But if you keep it there until the cement is dry, once you take it away, it has no bearing. But one has to reach that level of spiritual maturity. And therefore the Bhagavatam says that until one has reached a level of spiritual maturity and absorption, they should not try to prematurely eject or remove themselves from their material situation, but rather use it as a supportive aspect to help them. Does that help?
So, considering the time, we have two more questions. I mean, one online and Tulasya England. So, anyway, we'll go to the one online. So, it's from Katerina, Dandavas Pranam. I would love to hear Maharaj's thoughts on what is happening with our climate and or environment. I would also greatly appreciate any thoughts on how to remain spiritual in light of the climate crisis, and especially when encouraging people who ignore it. Encountering people who ignore it. So when she encounters people who ignore this crisis. I'm not proud of it, but I have noticed in myself less compassion and love in such moments, as I feel as if such people are in some way harming Mother Earth and cause suffering to others. Thank you.
Yeah, like when we see all problems in the world, if we trace them back to their root cause, is due to a lack of spiritual vision. So whether you look at political problems in the world, or whether you look at economic problems in the world, or whether you look at environmental problems in the world, the root of it is that we don't have any, we're not, it's a lack of spirituality, it's a lack of spiritual vision. Economic problems exist ultimately because people have greed. So when there's a basic quality of greed, then know that there's going to be exploitation, and if there's exploitation, know that there's going to be imbalance, and the haves and the have-nots. Probably 99% of the wealth in this world is owned by 0.1% of the people. That's the kind of imbalance you get when greed enters our society. If you look at political problems, again, it's because people place value on the wrong things. And environmental problems in their root cause exist because we don't have a spiritual vision of Earth. If you see Earth as just matter, if you see Earth as just elements, if you see Earth as just a resource, then what's going to happen is ultimately you're going to see yourself as the controller, the enjoyer, the proprietor of that resource, and therefore you're going to exploit. And then as soon as you exploit, you're going to create imbalance, and that imbalance then shows in things like climate change, in things like lack of sustainable resources in the world, pollution, and so on and so forth. So when people have a spiritual vision of Mother Earth, that it's Mother Earth, it's not just a resource, it's not just matter, it's not just elements, but it's actually the mother, The earth is actually nourishing us, the earth is supporting us, the earth is facilitating us to live in this world. And therefore we see the earth as a person. Spirituality is personal, and therefore we never see Mother Earth as a resource but as a personality. Then we see divinity in nature, and when we see divinity in nature, then naturally we will have respect. So yes, there's a difference between lust and love. We often say this, that a student asked his teacher, what's the difference between lust and love? And he said, you see that flower? If you lust after it, then you'll go up to it, you'll smell it, you'll pick it, you'll smell it, and you'll enjoy it. But if you love that flower, then you'll go up to it, you'll protect it, you'll water it, and you'll nourish it, and you'll allow it to grow to its full capacity so that it can exhibit all its colors and all its fragrance. So that's the difference between lust and love, and that's the difference between people who have a spiritual vision of Mother Earth and people who have a very materialistic vision. And so that's where it all comes from. So eco-theology is what we need. A theological understanding of the ecological issues. If you try to solve ecological issues without factoring deep theology and spiritual vision, then you don't actually solve ecological issues in their deepest sense. We have to respect the earth is our mother.
Dear Maharaj, if you don't mind, I will also shortly ask my question. Firstly, thank you very much for this thorough explanation about Dharma. And I was just thinking about Ashan Dharma, which you mentioned, that we have our duties towards our relatives, families, surrounding people. And how should we behave if sometimes, like these responsibilities that we get are not according to our desires? Like, for example, people naturally expect from us something, and we have to do something. So how do we understand what is like really my duty, and where do I need sometimes to confront and follow my dharma and say no, let's say, to the close one? How do we do it?
Yeah.
Practically?
So sometimes you have dharmic responsibilities, dharmas, certain responsibilities towards people, but then sometimes it feels like it's counterproductive. It's not helping you in your spiritual journey. And how do you know when to continue honoring those things and doing them? And how do you know if you should give it up? And how do you know you're not being irresponsible by giving it up? That's the essence.
Yes, because sometimes we don't really feel that we should confront. It's easier for us to do what we expected, and sometimes we do not even think whether it's according to
Whether I
dharma
should.
and
Oh,
so.
okay.
So
How do you know when to raise an issue and to
yes.
tackle it? Yeah, in the course, life in the world is complex, and there are dharmas, and sometimes those dharmas are very naturally being integrated with our spiritual journey. And some dharmas, you look at them and you think, I have no idea how this is helping me in my spirituality. How do we know whether that's just a divine arrangement, I have to go through it, or whether I'm supposed to speak up and change it? Of course, these questions are better answered with close people who know your situation, who know you, who know your strengths, and who know where sometimes you may have weaknesses. And they may be, in discussion with them, better placed to help you understand whether if you're keeping quiet is because out of spiritual maturity, or if you're keeping quiet out of weakness and shyness. They can help you to understand, more about your own intentions. So what I would say is a lot of the intricate decisions of Dharma, and at what time to speak up, change it, give it up, those intricate decisions of Dharma are better unraveled in conversation, because there are many things to consider in any given situation. But let me just say one other thing about this. If you find yourself in a situation of Dharma where you feel it's not comfortable, it's not inspiring, and it's not seemingly helping you in your spiritual journey, there's a Christian prayer, and the person says, God, I prayed to you for strength, and you just kept sending me problems to solve. I prayed to you for love, and you just kept sending me people who needed help. I prayed to you for wisdom, and you just sent me so many unexpected situations. God, now I can see you gave me everything I needed, but nothing that I wanted. There's a sense in which sometimes we're not aware, but the struggles, the difficulties, the friction and the obstacles that we go through are sometimes also helping us to develop inner qualities, inner resilience, inner muscle that ultimately helps us in our spiritual journey. So sometimes we give this analogy of a butterfly that's breaking out of a cocoon, and then someone saw the butterfly struggling and thought like, yeah, maybe I should just help it. So he just slit open the cocoon so the butterfly could just fly. So then the butterfly came out and it flew, and after 1 minute it just came tumbling down, and he was wondering, and then he realized it was nature's arrangement for the butterfly to have to struggle with its wings to break through that cocoon, because from that struggle it developed the muscle, the strength in its wings to then fly in the sky. So we have to also understand this art of sometimes learning to become comfortable with the uncomfortable situations of life. That's one art we don't learn in school, because what we're told is when there's discomfort, get rid of it, run away from it, mitigate it. It's bad. We have to also understand that the pain of this world has a purpose. The problems of this world can lead to progress, and the discomfort of this world can create unimaginable growth if we're able to process it and utilize it in an appropriate way. So sometimes when we're going through struggles, also try to reflect on this, which could give another perspective. Thank you so much. So thank you all so much for your patience, your attention, your presence, positivity. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. We appreciate it also very much. So thank you very much for coming, everyone.